Hi, everyone. I'm going to be really quick because the presentation is going to take place virtually, but I just wanted to come here in person to remind you that everyone in this project is a real human in the world. And you're going to be hearing from Margy Adams, who's a PhD candidate in English at Emory, focusing on sound studies and Caribbean studies. Tanvi Sharma, who is the lead designer on the project that we're going to be talking about, and a staff researcher also at Emory. Shiyao, a PhD candidate in computer science at Emory, and Varner, who's the lead software engineer at Emory Center for Digital Scholarship. I know we're short on time, so that's all I've got, and I'm going to turn it over to the online contingent.
Thanks, Lauren. So this talk is a part of a larger project called Data by Design, an interactive history of database from 1789 to 1900s that underlines the role of colonial power relations and their connections to database. The basic idea is to tell the story of emergence of modern database using database itself, which is to say this project has also a lot of images. Our core question is for humanities projects, how might we consider the argumentative stakes of our project through the language that we're using in image descriptions? So we consider how accessible DH projects can ensure functionality and usability, as well as communicate the project's argumentative stakes through the example of alt text. So a core tenet for this project is that universal design is not truly universal. And through Data by Design, we aspire to explore some best practices for accessibility, like retaining the goals of inclusion, being honest about our limitations and possibilities, and reflecting on what project-specific users need for the argument of the project itself. So jumping right into it, ooh, what's that? I've seen this before. Have you all seen this before? Something is before we've all experienced this. It would be much more helpful to have more context for this image, like, this is a basket of fruits with grapes, bananas, and apples. This is how that image would be experienced by sighted viewers in the event that it did load properly. Harvard has some standards for how to write alt text for an image like this, like added definitely for all non-decorative images where this is a central piece of content. Keep it short and descriptive like a tweet, and don't include any redundant information. So moving forward, alt text is meant to convey the why of the image. The writing in the alt text depends on the situation in which you find it. It's context dependent, and of course, there's not just one way to access it. It's not exclusively for screen reader users, and can be helpful in a variety of contexts. So handing off to Margy for a more in-depth explanation.
Cool. Thank you, Tanvi. So it seems somewhat of a harsh pivot to sound in this project focused on the visual. But as we've stated, Data by Design is a project that takes seriously power, where it's located and how it seeps into contact that has been deemed objective or devoid of affect or perspective. So in crude terms, our society has seemed to put sight on the end of a spectrum, the kind of fact or rational side, and then sound on another side, the kind of emotional subjective side. But alt text, we think, is not isolated from our project aims, though adhering to a specific model can implicitly reify an urge towards objectivity. So to confront this purported neutrality, I realized upon reflection as I was about halfway through composing the alt text for this project that Tina Camp's practice of listening to images holds a lot of sway over how I not only interact with visual content myself, but also how I have written the alt text for this project. So Tina Camp, who is a Black feminist writer, art historian, and currently professor of humanities at Princeton, sets up listening to images as a methodology to reinterpret how we encounter images so that we become more aware of the affective layers and different subject positions depicted within and around an image. So who or what is being captured versus and who is capturing. So emerging from a Black feminist lineage, which forefronts the necessity of revealing inherent power dynamics in the creation and framing of cultural objects, Camp's method contests the epistemological role sight plays in over-determining and then simultaneously undermining how we interpret and interact with visual content. And to do this, Camp defines listening as more than what we hear, but rather a robust experience, a multisensory experience based on vibration and physical contact, which I think is so cool. So sound literally touches us, she says. So when we're confronted with an image, which also touches us, it affects us. She implores us to ask what is being performed there in the image that you can't necessarily see by looking at it, but you can apprehend when you look away from it, and then attune ourselves to what the impression is that's left upon us about the person who decided to take the image and what it's about. So that was a very long-winded way of saying we ought not discount our particular perspective when interpreting an image, because it never has been anything but perspectival. So even when language has been presented as if the interpretation surpasses subjectivity, it doesn't. So the framework of listening to rather than merely looking at these images better equips us to consider those power relationships by contemplating both what the images show and do not show, their contents, as well as the position of the camera or the viewer. Her practice insists that there is more to an image than its mere visuality, and when dealing with data, especially with people who have been abstracted to visual icons and representations, it is important that we attune ourselves to their personhood rather than their mere representations. When applied to writing alt text, then, this approach results, we believe, in descriptive language that is more in tune with the humanistic argument of our project and attentive to the work and the people behind the work that we study. So for example, this image on the left, created by W.E.B. Du Bois and his team of Atlanta University students for the 1900 Paris exhibition, is a part of our 5th chapter on data and truth. And so industry standards would have us write the following description, which acknowledges numerical increments, axes, and percentages, which is all well and good, but the description distills the prominence of the colors and the shapes and the overall impression of the chart, which in a weirdly roundabout way ends up undermining the very aims the chart sets out to prove, or set out to prove at the Paris exhibition, which is about Black embodied experience. And yet, even though Harvard and other venues have laid out standards of best practices, more often than not, unfortunately, you will see things like this, where the alt text is a repetition of the title, a file name, or something non-descriptive. Why? In part because we think alt text seems hard or laborious to write, rather than as a part of the entire textual production of the work. But to turn this presupposition around, I'll hand it off to our team wizard, Shiyao.
Thank you, Margy. So in order to make the alt text writing more easier and try to understand what type of information people find most useful from alt text, the researchers from MIT have conducted a user study to evaluate the alt text from a comprehensive collection of data visualizations. So the researchers have synthesized a 4-level semantic model to characterize the different type of information that could be included in visualization alt text. So from the most basic information, such as the type of the chart, the encoding channels as indicated in level 1, to a more contextualized level, such as the required domain knowledge to understand the chart or the concluded insights as depicted in level 4. So for instance, here is the bar chart reporting the COVID-19 mortality rate across varied age groups. The annotated alt text talk about the titles, the axis content as in red layer 1, and few statistic summaries such as the extremum in green, and the visual trends such as where is a big increase or decrease in yellow, and finally, what is the whole trend indicating in blue as the level 4. However, we argue that this current model might not be enough to design alt text for visualizations that serve specific purposes, such as the visualizations in the field of digital humanity, which is always trying to make an argument instead of solely reporting the statistics and the trends. For the marital status chart we showed in previous slides, beyond the basic information as in level 1 in orange and the visual patterns as in level 2 in yellow, we wrote this description for the image as an additional layer in purple. One might see that the image resembles, as we write, an abstract image of a city at sunset, with the central blue area resembling the top of a silhouetted large building, and the red and green areas on either side of the blue depicting the sky. Listening to images provides more than the mere information and the statistics, but an impression, one that in this case caused the urban areas many Black residents populated at the turn of the century. So the next step of our project is to evaluate our approach to write the alt text of data visualizations. So we will conduct the user studies to make a comparison between the industry standard approach and our humanistic approach to synthesize some additional insights that could be brought from the listening to image approach. Thank you so much for listening. This is all for our presentation.
You can find the rest of our project and how we've used alt text on our website, dataxdesign.io. It's currently in beta. Thank you.